Hello, everyone, and welcome to Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and I'll be in the driver's seat for today's show as we learn how to stop chasing paychecks and learn how to start building a business that we can be proud of, how to do these things the right way. And we learn that from some of the most successful people in various industries to see how they achieve the success that they have. We have a great show for you today because we have a great guest, and Mr. Larry Goanos. Thank you, Larry, for being with us.
My pleasure to be here, Josh. I recently wrote a book, which I want to talk about briefly. It's actually my fourth insurance book, and a little of a humble brag. Two of the four were read by Warren Buffett, and he actually sent me notes and said, "Hey, I liked your book." And I asked him, all the proceeds go to charity from all my books. So I asked him if we could use his words for advertising, and he said, "Yeah, go right ahead. I hope you sell all the copies, and the charities get a big check." So he's a very down to earth guy as he's portrayed in the media. He really is a nice guy.
Nice. That's very cool. So I guess that kind of answers my first question, which is, what is it you do? I'm assuming that must be, and I want you to tell our listeners what exactly it is that you do.
So yeah, the writing of the books is really a sideline. I'm in commercial insurance, and more specifically professional lines insurance, which insures the acts of professionals. So in the line I've been in for 35 years as an attorney, an insurance broker, an underwriting manager, we insure like boards of directors of big companies, bankers, stockbrokers, any professional who performs a service could get sued. Even just, you might not know this, Josh, but if you're on the board of directors of a public company in the US, theoretically your entire asset base, life savings, house, everything's on the line if you get
Yep.
sued and lose. So virtually every publicly traded company buys directors and officers liability insurance to protect their board members. Most people would not serve on a board of, say, Home Depot or Bank of America without this insurance.
Of
So
course.
that's my area, generally speaking.
Massive exposure. So what got you started in that, Larry? Why choose that subset of insurance?
That's a great question. And my first book I wrote, I have a whole chapter on how people got into insurance. And Josh, this might not surprise you that the average answer, and mine included, is happenstance. Very few people in high school say, "I want to go into insurance when I get older," right? So me, I was a lawyer, and I answered an ad in the New York Law Journal when I lived in Manhattan, and it happened to be for a law firm that practiced professional lines insurance law, and that's how I got in.
All right. What do you like best about it?
The thing I really like is it's a very people-oriented business. I say this sometimes not to denigrate my insurance colleagues in other lines like property insurance or workers' comp, but when you're insuring the board of directors or the CEO of a company, you usually, a lot of times, you meet with them, you have a personal discussion, they explain their business and what their prospects are, because really the insurance carrier is putting their capital at risk, taking a vote of confidence in your company that you're not going to get sued for a stock drop, you're not going to have a bad quarter or year. So there's a lot of human interaction, and then just interaction among underwriters and brokers. I say to young people in our industry, I'm based in the Northeast, but I have friends throughout the country because of what I do, and I meet them through work. I don't know that necessarily an accountant in Boston knows the accountants in Miami. He might, but I know for sure people in my lines of insurance, we make friends not only nationally, but internationally. I have friends in London, Bermuda. It's a very people-oriented niche of the insurance industry.
I can imagine so. I mean, it's a very specialized thing, and it's going to tend to disproportionately be high net worth people that are going to want this. It's going to be good circles to be in, I would think.
Yeah, that's true. I do have a lot of wealthy acquaintances. Makes me feel a little inadequate, but you're right. You're right.
So, if you were to track it, Larry, where would you say the success came from for you?
Well, for me, it's interesting because the name of your podcast is spot on. Know your shit. There are some people in our industry that don't really know the insurance products that closely, although many of them are marketing and salespeople and relationship builders. I came up through the technical side as a lawyer, so I know these policies very well, how they work, what they're intended to do. And in fact, for the last 15 years, I've had my own consulting company, and I do a lot of expert witness work in lawsuits, because basically when two companies are fighting over their insurance coverage, you need an expert on your side to come in and say that you're correct. So I do a lot of that, and that's by virtue of the fact that I know the products and I know how they work. So I think your theme of know your shit it transcends all industries, right? You really need to know the products and what you're doing. Even if you're a great person and a salesperson, you still need to know what you're selling.
Absolutely. And if you don't, then what are you actually bringing to the table, right? I mean, the customer is coming to you because you're supposed to know it better than they do, so they don't have to be the expert. They're
Right.
paying you to be the expert. So,
Right. In the insurance world, we have a term, a knife and fork man, and that indicates someone who doesn't really know the product, but they're a great, personable person who takes clients out to dinner, hence knife and fork man. Or
yep,
sometimes they'll
yep,
say that guy was all teeth and cufflinks, right? Because
yep.
he's out there smiling but he doesn't know the product. So
Flash
there
and
are those.
dazzle.
Yes, yeah, there are those
Yeah,
people.
I get it. And I mean, there's a lot of them out there who really all sizzle but no steak, right?
Right, right. Another one, another good saying.
I think
Um,
that's the big differentiator, frankly, in the world today is the people that actually know what the hell they're talking about. It's such a dying breed. Like
yeah,
there are people that can follow a skill set, kind of like if this is the input, then this is what the output is going to be. Oh, you need insurance? Then let me sell you this. Well, wait a second. My situation's not quite like what you have. The tilt light goes on and me. I'm sorry, that doesn't matter. Like I don't
yeah,
have. They haven't told me how to handle that. So and typically what happens is they try to bullshit their way through it. They try to fake it, and anybody that's worth much has got a pretty good bullshit indicator, frankly. And maybe they buy from you just because they don't want to take and be bothered to look for somebody else, but that's not a long-term relationship you've established. The second somebody actually knows what the hell they're talking about, you will lose your business to them because they
yeah,
will come in there and have the answers they need and free that customer up to not need to be the expert themselves. That is what they're paying for. I bring you in so you can look out for my interest based upon having a broad breadth of knowledge in this aspect that I need help in. If you can't fill that box, then what the hell do you bring to the table?
What you just said too conjures up a saying that you're probably familiar with. To a man with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
You got it.
And some people, they only know the one thing. And if yours is not a nail, I don't know exactly, but I'll take my hammer and I'll hit the nail for you. But that's all I can do.
Yeah. They're one trick ponies kind of thing.
Yeah,
And even that trick is just because like somebody showed them how to do that thing.
yeah,
As far as understanding how it all works. And I get it. I get why that is because there's such a lack of um, loyalty amongst employees and frankly amongst employers that like, why the hell am I going to take and spend a fortune in time and aggravation training you to how the hell to know this when you're just going to take and jump ship 5 minutes from now and go to my competitor? Like, why would I do that? Let me just take and give you enough to take and turn you into an income generating unit.
yeah,
And frankly, that's the real estate business right there in microcosm. That's what it is. Like because agents jump ship from one to the other shop
yeah,
super quickly based upon a little bit more of a split or whatever, but qualitatively, they're not great agents. They don't understand what it is that they're looking to sell. And in insurance and all that stuff, it's so important because that expertise, there's such a big gap from the ones that know what the hell they're talking about and those that don't.
yeah.
There's a million of the ones that don't know they don't. When you get around somebody who actually knows what the frick they're talking about, man, it is so refreshing because now you got somebody who can bring solutions to the table. And that's such a beautiful thing. In business, if I can take and not have to take and spend the time to learn how to do this and just have somebody that brings oh my God, is that valuable to me?
Yeah, I agree 100%. In our world, insurance, we frequently companies lose underwriters and claims people to a competitor for not that big of a raise, and then they'll bring in somebody right out of college to replace them. And it's not as bad as it used to be, but I used to shake my head and say, why did we just let a 5-year experienced guy go for $20,000 raise at a competitor, and now we got to teach a kid from college everything from scratch? But unfortunately, some big companies still make that error.
Yep.
So
No, it's a thing.
So, Josh, getting back to my recent book, it's called Laughs and Lessons Stories
Mhm.
from an Insurance Career, but it's really, the stories are very fungible. They're business stories, and I wrote it to lure young people into the insurance world. So, if you have a minute, I'll tell you two of the stories quickly.
Sure.
One's funny and one's a little bit instructive. The funny one is a boss of mine in the early 2000s was an expert in a special type of insurance. It was a financial product that was cutting edge, very sexy. And we were golfing in Bermuda one day, and our secretary, we shared a secretary, she called and said, Bob, a guy called for you from the Wall Street Journal. So Bob, we were golfing with some insurance brokers. We did business. He said, "Oh, I don't want to call the guy back just yet. There's so much going on with my product. It's called finite risk. So much going on. I got to think about it. I want the questions in advance. Call Joe in corporate communications." And we work for AIG, a very big international insurance company.
Yeah.
Call Joe and have him pre-screen the questions and call me, and I think about it. I don't want to say the wrong thing. So we hang up the phone. For the next 40 minutes, Bob's telling everybody on the course, "Hey, Wall Street Journal's calling. I may have to leave to take the interview. I'll just let you know right now, Wall Street Journal's interviewing me, blah, blah, blah." Finally, after 40 minutes, Sandy calls back. "Bob, Joe from corporate communications called the Wall Street Journal guy." "Oh, he did? Okay, what are the questions?" "He wants you to know that your subscription expires next week."
Yep.
After all that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the funny one. And there's 37 stories in my book, which is available now on Amazon, Laughs and Lessons. So this one's a little instructive, and it sounds common sense, but a lot of young kids coming out of college don't think about this. At AIG, also in the early 2000s, the company owned a golf course in Westchester called Moorfar, which is a very prestigious course. Everybody wanted to play it. So every division of AIG, and there were a couple hundred in New York, got 4 tee times each year for the whole season. 4 tee times. They were like gold. Everybody wanted them because you could call any client and say you want to play Moorfar. They'd cancel their schedule. "Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow." One summer, my group, and I was like the main contact financial institutions group with the people who ran the course for AIG internally, we got 22 tee times. Everybody else got 3 or 4. And there was a secret to how we got the 22. So the golf course was a profit center like every other place at AIG. So if somebody canceled, they wanted to fill the foursome so they could charge back the other division. If it went empty, the golf course would lose money. So there was a cancellation list. So early in the summer of 2000 or the golf season, the woman who ran the cancellation list, Lois, called me. I was at the top of the list. There's like probably 100 people on the list. I get to the top. She calls me immediately. I say, "Yes, we'll take the tee time." Next day, after golfing, I did something that I guess nobody else had done up to that point. I went to the Duane Reade drugstore down the street on Wall Street, and I bought a 1-pound bag of M&Ms, and I sent it to Lois. And I said, "Thank you very much for the tea time. We appreciate it, blah, blah." She later, about a month later, after giving me another 4 or 5, said, "Larry, I put you at the top of the cancellation list all the time because you're the only one who's ever thanked me, and I'm going to keep you at the top." So we got 22 tee times, and I never told anyone the secret was each time I would send her a pound of M&Ms. So the lesson is just be nice to people, especially those who are in administrative roles who you think can't help you. You never know in the long run, and just good human dignity and policy.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's good to be good to people. Just because you're excellent at what you do, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't take and be excellent as being a human being as well.
Right.
I think it's a well-rounded thing. It's almost like people think it's a myopic thing. Like if you're good at what you do, well, you don't have to be nice to people anymore.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
even more so reason because when you're good at what you do and you're nice to people, man, you are so unusual in this world, and people really genuinely appreciate it. And that kind of brings me to my next question. What do you think in your makeup, Larry, makes you good at what you do?
Well, I'm one of those weird people. So I went to law school and was a practicing lawyer for 5 years. And there's a sort of popular belief, which is mostly true, that people who go to law school are good with words and not numbers, right? So I know very few lawyers who are like accounting oriented. There are some, but not many. Me, I love words and writing. That's why I've written 4 books, working on a 5th. And so really insurance policies, all you're selling is words on a piece of paper, right? And so the fact that I know how the words interact and what they mean and all those types of things, it's the nitty gritty of my area. Like you're interviewing people from all walks of life. Everybody has their own expertise depending on their industry. Mine's words on paper in the insurance industry.
Love it. So let me ask you this: as an entrepreneur, as a guy that's gone out there and had to kill in order to eat, there's always good and bad. And what tends to happen, I find with a lot of successful folks, it's kind of like people that I know that go to the racetrack. They always tell the stories about the winners, but they don't talk about all the losers. You and I both know there were a lot of losses, a lot of headwinds that had to be endured to make anything happen. And with that comes disappointment, unmet expectations, whatever. How did you keep yourself going when things got hard? What did you use with yourself to keep you in the game?
That's a great question, Josh. When I started this 15 years ago, my own consulting firm, I had lunch with a guy who'd been a consultant for 20 years on his own. He did sales consulting for insurance companies. And going into this, because I moved from Manhattan to Pennsylvania, I had to leave insurance world, the big companies, to start my own consulting business. And so he said to me at lunch one day when I was picking his brain, he goes, Larry, 80 to 90% of the business you get is going to be from people you've never met. Right. And at that point, I had been a lawyer for 5 years. I had tons of lawyer friends from insurance, everything. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's so wrong. I got so many buddies who are going to funnel work my way for expert witness and consulting and da da da. Turns out the guy was 100% correct.
Yeah.
I have done over 350 insurance lawsuits since 2010, and maybe 5 were from friends of mine. Most of them are from people I don't know. And so to get back to your question, the answer is just keep your head down, work hard, do well. When you're an expert witness or an insurance consultant, it's a little unseemly to like advertise and say, hey, come use me. So really how you get traction is do a good job for a client and hope that they'll say word of mouth and spread. And that's how it's gone. Like any other small business, mine started out slow and gained momentum over time. And now more and more people know what I do and will call me. And almost every time they call me, it's someone I've never heard of before, but they're like, Larry, I got your name from a guy who heard from another guy that you did a good job, So that's really what sustains you is just keep your head down, do your job well, and the momentum will build, in my view.
Love it. So, Larry, I know you have 4 books. You even mentioned that you're working on a 5th. I want to talk about them because books to me are tools that we make for people, right? We write a book to take and say, hey, here's an insight, here's something of value that I think this is typically why we write a book. I know you've written a few. Who is the person that you've written? Let's talk about the 4 books. Who was each one written to? Who was your target with them?
Well, so only one of the 4 is what I would call an academic book. Mm-hmm. In our world, and I suspect other industries too, but in our insurance world, there was not a lot of structured training, right? So D&O insurance, directors and officers liability, which insures the board of directors, that's a mainstay product, a lot of money in it, but very few training materials. So typically at AIG and other companies in the old days, I don't know about today, but 20 years ago, when someone would start, they'd say, here's a policy, go read it and figure out for yourself, right? That was the training. Yeah. So there were some books that were written, but they were all written by lawyers writing about case law. In California, the court said this, in New York said that. So I said to myself in 2012, somebody needs to write a book that walks people through the policy, explains what everything means, and really pulls it apart for a newcomer. So I wrote a book called D&O 101, and the thing is a bestseller in the publisher's history. A number of insurance organizations use it as their basic training manual. When they hire new people, like, read this book. So recently, I separated from the publisher of it. We were having some disagreements on their distribution. So I took back all the rights and they took it off Amazon for about a month. I had to get my own self-publisher. During the month it was off Amazon, people were emailing me, Larry, can you send me a copy? I just started in the industry. Everybody tells me I need to read this book. Would you please? And so I feel like I'm performing a service to help spread the word and help people understand directors and officers liability insurance. But rather than get it back on self-published on Amazon, because that's an expensive and annoying process, I'm actually writing an update to it because it's a 14-year-old book anyway. And D&O 101 updated 2nd edition will be coming out next year that, again, will walk people through how our industry works, how the product works, and those kinds of things. So my other 3 books, well, 2 of them, are sort of a history of professional lines insurance because I felt like nobody's going to remember these stories of people who were in the ground floor and did great things. So it was my way to give back to the industry. My very first book, I interviewed over 400 people and got some terrific stories that you won't find anywhere else. That's called Claims Made and Reported. But it helps preserve, a lot of those people are deceased. Companies are out of business. So it's sort of like a historical manual for our business.
Love it. Love it. So let me ask you this. As you look at insurance today, as you look at the world today, what do you see as the opportunity that's out there?
That's a great question. On the one hand, everything's changing so quickly, and a prime example is auto insurance. You probably know this, Josh, but I have two young grandsons under the age of one. They'll probably never drive a car, right? Because AI and self-driving cars, at some point in the next 10 to 15 years, states or the federal government will outlaw driving by humans because humans have accidents, they get drunk, they do different things. Whereas once the self-driving is perfected, there'll be no reason to have human beings drive a car anymore, and it'll be the safer alternative. So you'd say, well, that screws Allstate and State Farm and all these auto insurers, Geico, to an extent. But now that will be on the downswing. On the upswing will be product liability insurance, because all those companies that make those
Like those
cars,
cars are now on the hook for their AI,
right?
for their driving
Exactly.
software. Right. Because now where does the lawsuit go? The lawsuit doesn't go to the person that's operating because they're not operating the vehicle. The vehicle's
Right,
operating itself.
exactly. There was a software glitch, a hardware glitch, all that. So the insurance industry is
Absolutely.
very fluid. Another thought is some states are talking about requiring gun owners to have liability insurance. That would be bonanza. The more states that do that,
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of
Sure.
AI insurance. That's believe it or not, there's insurance products. If you create an AI product, you can buy insurance for it. So the insurance industry is very flexible. They
The litigious nature of the United States of America makes that always anything new. The next question is, it's new. How will we sue them? Um,
right. I'll tell you a funny quote. Hank Greenberg, who's a legend in our industry, was a CEO for AIG for a long time. He just turned 100. One
wow.
time in the 2000s, we were on a conference call after some reform litigation had been passed for securities, and somebody asked him and said, "Mr. Greenberg, what about the new securities reform litigation, which in theory would cut down on the lawsuits, and that's why people are buying the insurance because of lawsuits?" And his quote, I never forget, he goes, "We're in favor of reform, but not too much."
There you go. Absolutely. So let me ask you this, Larry. You've been doing this. You've got a history behind you that's allowed you to learn lessons, probably both ways, the hard way and
Yeah.
the easy way, learning from other people's mistakes and making a few of your own. What would you say is the most important thing you've learned in the process of doing all that you've done?
Wow, that's a great question. That really cuts to the chase. Um, I'd say two-prong answer.
Okay.
There's a book, I think it's Seven Habits of highly successful people. Stephen
Yep.
Covey,
Highly effective people. Yeah, yeah.
highly effective. Right, there you go.
Or successful.
With
One
good
of the
memory.
others.
Yes, people with good memories. You read that one.
Yeah, yeah. That's haven't
So
read that one yet. Keep forgetting.
one of the chapters, and I used to do this when I was a manager at a couple different companies, is entitled "Sharpen the Saw." And so
Mm,
it's the analogy of a lumberjack's got to keep his saw sharp before he
sure.
cuts down trees. And so we need to do that in our careers. And so I would have like a weekly meeting with my staff where somebody each week would have to sharpen our saws by presenting some information that's relevant and new. But ultimately, it's on everybody's own plate. They have to keep themselves sharp. So read industry periodicals, learn about the newest product innovations, all those things. Keep learning is what it comes down to. And then the flip side of that is also keep asking questions. The old saying, there are no dumb questions. That's true. Ask a dumb question if you have to. It's better than not asking. I've
Any
been in so many
question?
meetings where people don't ask questions, and later you realize they didn't even know this, but they didn't ask.
Yeah, yeah. No, I run into it all the time when I teach. I'm like, look, guys, this is the international distress signal. If you don't understand what's going on, please raise your hand, because otherwise this degenerates into you watching me do something that I know how to do. That doesn't help you. I need you to
Yeah.
know how to do it. So you got
Yeah.
to let me know when you're in trouble. And it's a thing, but people are afraid to ask that question because they feel like they're insecure. They feel like it's a dumb question or whatever else. And frankly, what I've learned is, especially with that question people think is dumb, there's 10 other people in the room that desperately want to know the answer to that as well, but they don't have the courage to ask the question either. Somebody
Yeah.
has to take and be the brave one and help the room.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
All right, so this next little segment I want to get to, Larry, if you is to get to know you a little better. I find that our listeners like to know who the people that we're talking to. So these questions are a little bit more about you, if that's okay. And
Sure.
I'd love to ask you, what would you say you're most proud of in business that you've accomplished?
Well, probably writing that book that's used as a training manual, DNO 101. I'm glad I wrote it. And so many people have said to me, I have it on my desk. I look at it all the time. It wasn't like that crazy of a feat, but you tell anybody, can you write a book? Everybody's, oh my God, no, that's hard. It's like anything else. There's an old saying. I actually give some presentations on my books on the process of writing them that have lessons to them. And one of the lessons I'll tell you is there's an old saying in England: how do you eat an elephant? With a teaspoon. And that's exactly it. If you say something, can you write a 300-page book? They'd be, no, 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 no. Well, can you write one paragraph a day for the next 2 years? Oh, I could do that, one paragraph a day. Well, then you'll have your 300-page book.
That's it.
So
A little at a time. An
yeah.
inch by the inch, it's a cinch by the yard. It's hard. Um, Similar question, but a little bit more personal. What are you most proud of in life that you've accomplished?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a tough one. Well, I have stepchildren, but I don't have any of my own children, biological. So I think most parents would say they're children, although I'm married to my wife now 14 years, who was my college girlfriend. She dumped me, and then we got married 26 years later. It was my first marriage. So I'm writing a memoir. This is my first non-insurance book. I call it An Eat, Pray, Love from a man's perspective.
Mm,
So I would say marrying her because she was the love of my life and keeping the relationship going well for 14 years. I'm very proud of that. I couldn't, I'm so happily married, but I was single until I was 48, Josh, which
mm.
among my circle of friends, I'm the longest holdout, and sort of that's also part of our society. Men, if you can hold out and get married late in life, you're my hero, you're a playboy. Women, what's that with that old maid? It took her
Yep,
till she
yep.
was, it's a double standard. But
Very much is.
yeah, yeah. So I'm happy that the marriage has worked
You're
out.
happy that she finally came to her sentences and realized what she lost out on.
I'm going to make sure she watches this.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah. No,
you're
I
my
hear you.
first
All right. So,
guy.
if you could give our listeners one piece of advice, Larry, you don't know if you're ever going to talk to these people again, never going to see them. What would be that one piece of advice?
I think it's something we already touched on. Just be nice to everybody. There's so many people out there fighting a tough fight. Lately, since the pandemic, I've taken to every time I get gas, I give the attendant a $2 tip, and they
Hmm.
are so ecstatic. $2 is nothing to most of us, but it
Yeah,
makes that guy's day. And thank you, sir, very much. I appreciate it. And so little things like that you can be nice to people and help them out in some way goes a long way to improving their day and maybe their life. And so that's my one piece of advice I'd say is just be nice to everyone.
love it. Uh, we already met. You already recommended one, but I want to ask you if that is the one book you'd recommend. If you could recommend one book to people besides your own, obviously. Um,
Besides my own.
yeah,
Oh,
one book to people. What would be the one book you'd recommend?
that's a great question too. I have to say, I used to read a lot of fiction, and the last 10 years, I'm only reading nonfiction because
Mm,
I don't know why. I feel like I want to learn something and move forward on something. So, like the Dummy series, I read a lot of those.
yeah, yeah.
Financial uh, thing. But I'll tell you one book that I still find astounding, which is fiction, is by Jonathan Franzen called The Corrections. I don't know if you ever heard of the book
Mm,
or him. He was famous because Oprah chose this book for her book club, and he didn't want it at first, and he said no. Then his publisher probably talked him into it because Oprah's book
smack them
club.
around. Are you out of your stinking mind? Yeah,
Yeah, his writing, he's an extremely gifted writer. It's an interesting story. And if you're in the market for good fiction, The Corrections would be my number one
love it.
suggestion.
Never heard of it. I will check it out. Favorite movie of all time, Larry?
I hate to say it. I have sort of two answers. Non-comedy would be The Godfather. I love The
Great
Godfather.
film. You can't go
But
wrong.
my comedy answer, which I can watch every day, is a little bit lowbrow. Animal House. I love Animal House.
Okay. All right. Famous person in history you'd want to meet if you could.
Oh, in history, that's a good one. Um, well, I am a Christian, so I guess I would say Jesus.
Always a safe bet, man.
Yeah.
Good one to go with. Person from your past. Similar question, but more personal. Person from your past you'd want to sit down with and have lunch with today if you could?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, probably my parents. They're both deceased,
Mhm.
and I feel like I'm a lot wiser now and would be a better son. They both died fairly young and
Yeah.
30 years ago. So I would love a chance to say, hey, this is what I've done thanks to you guys. And, it's sort
Yeah,
of,
yeah. No, I get that 100%. That makes a lot of sense. One piece of advice you'd go back and give a younger Larry if you could. What did he need to hear?
oh, that's another good one. You got a lot of great questions here. Well, I'll tell you, professionally speaking, since we're on a business podcast, this is something I really didn't do, but it's a great thing to do for young people. And I now tell them this: whatever career you're in, whatever industry, find some mentors
Yep.
and incorporate them into your. And they don't have to work for your same company; they could be a competitor. First of all, they're going to be very flattered when you say, "Hey, can you be my mentor?" They can give you a lot of good advice, and as they ascend the ladder, they may bring you with them and say, "Hey, this kid who asked me to be his mentor, I'm going to hire him." So I was always too probably self confident and didn't feel I needed him. I didn't even think about it until it was too late. When I started becoming mentors for others, I said,
Yep.
that's a great idea. But
Yep.
young people should try and do that and get as many as you can. You don't have to have one or two, you can have 8 or 10.
Yeah. I get that. And you're absolutely right. My path in business was very similar to yours. He didn't even know enough to ask for help.
Right,
So,
right, right.
um, if you had to be stuck in a foxhole, who would you want in there? Who's the person you'd pick to have in a foxhole with you?
Oh, all right. Well, I assume we'd say celebrities because if I
No,
say,
no, no.
oh,
Just
well, then my wife, I would say, I'll tell you something, Josh. Before I got back together with my wife, we dated 3.5 years. We had 18 years, no contact whatsoever, none. And during that 18-year period, if you said to me, you're in jail, you have one call, who do you know you can count on? Believe it or not, even though she was married to somebody else and had 3 kids, I knew I could always count on her.
hmm,
So I would maintain that same position of my wife as the foxhole friend.
good answer, man. Good answer. What do you do to unwind?
What do I do to unwind?
Yeah.
Um, I like listening to music. I used to bike, but I had a bad biking accident, so I've given that up. So I walk actually every morning. I walk. I broke my femur. And the
Ooh,
problem is today, if you're biking on roads, people are looking at their phone. It's no matter how safe you think you are, it's dangerous. So I'm a walker. I walk. We live right near the ocean, so I walk on the boardwalk, and it's very calming. And I love looking at the
sure.
ocean.
The ocean is a beautiful thing, man. It really is. Last question I have for you, Larry. Where can people find you?
Oh, okay. So I'm on LinkedIn under Larry Goanos, Goanos. And then Facebook, I have an author's page, which I just started. I resisted for the longest time, but now that I self published, I had to. That's Lazarus Goanos, which is my legal name. And then, yeah, that's the main. I'd say the Facebook and the LinkedIn would be my two main
Well,
places.
Larry, thank you so much for your time, for coming on, for sharing your wisdom with us. It was great having a chance to catch up with you.
Thanks for having me, Josh. I had a lot of fun. You have great questions. I wish you much continued success with this and your career.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank our listeners for taking and making the choice to spend their time with us and listening to Larry and all that he had, all of his wisdom on how to do business. That being said, as I do every time, I remind you there's lots of ways to do business, but there's never a good excuse not to know your shit. Till next time.